during this budget season. So actually I want to kick this off, if I know how to do this, with a video that kind of explains why we're here and what we can do when we're passionate and empowered.
It was pretty disgusting because it's this every week on just this block, every week. And I did it on Wednesday as well, just a slight pickup, so, yeah. And I had a bag then. Needs to be involved. They need to be more, sensitive or open to what we need. Yesterday, when I was over here, there was a cup that was buried, that was just put here. It had not been there before because we come out here regularly, so we know what's out here or ends up here, from week to week. And it was just buried here. And I actually think that if we had a trash receptacle and a nice one, that person would not have put it right here. They would have put it in the trash receptacle.
Morning. She has been really active in the Community Budget Alliance. She came down and spoke to council for the first time earlier this spring, and she's just rocking it. She's doing a great job, and that's kind of what we want to do here today is get all of you guys fired up about what you care about in your neighborhoods and be able to talk to your council members and to tell them what you care about and start getting action from them, right? So, and this is the time of year that we need to do that, because this is where we're deciding this is how the city is deciding on where and when and how to spend the money that is our money, our tax dollars. So, let me, sorry, I'm going to get help. So, it's so clear that Muriel and her neighbors work hard. They care about their neighborhood. If you could take a moment to think about what it is you care about in your neighborhood, what is it that you are passionate about? What are some of the things? Can anybody give a shout out about what you're passionate about in your neighborhood, what you care about, what you're here for this morning? Salamisha.
Shelters over the bus stops.
Shelters over bus stops. All right. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Libraries. Yes, ma'am.
Bike infrastructure.
Bike infrastructure. There you go. Anyone else?
Broken sidewalks.
Broken sidewalks. Missing sidewalks. Non-existent sidewalks. Salamisha, I know you got a list.
One more.
All right, one more.
Fire stations.
Fire stations. District 4. District 4 is one of the most efficient in fire stations in the entire city. We need about, 4 fire stations in this district alone. Ma'am?
Street lighting.
Street lights, yes, also very deficient. Did you have one?
I was going to say community safety, the lighting that we have in our neighborhoods sometimes, the lights are out for a very long time.
So community safety, the lights are out for a very long time. Completed parks. Yeah, we have some. We have parks that are not yet complete. So that's some of the stuff we're going to talk about this morning. And in your packets that you got this morning, there are. You can follow along with the presentation. Oh, there's someone in the back that really wants to say.
Yeah, I'm just here on the back a little bit. I'm sorry you didn't see me. It's about the community safe too, regarding the homeless around, and that makes so scary for our kids, especially for ourselves too. When you just going outside at night and get something to the store, it's impossible for you. So maybe the police or the government can do something about it.
So some different options, and different options to help with the homeless population and community safety. So, which is a very complex issue, definitely. So thank you, sir. So this morning, as I said, in your packet you have the PowerPoints that we'll be going through this morning and some other handouts that hopefully are useful to you. This morning I will be covering some basic facts in the mayor's budget, some things about what's in his proposed budget, how does this budget differ from past budgets, what will be some of the big discussion items that you will hear at council and you will see in the news. I'm sure you've already seen some of the controversy in the news. It's pretty fun right now. And then what questions you should ask, or more to the point, what questions, when I open the budget, how do I approach it? So I'll tell you how I approach it, and if you choose to think the same way about how to approach a budget, I'll share that with you. So I'll take hopefully about 30 minutes, and if there are clarifying questions, I'm going to try to be as clear as possible. If there are clarifying questions, raise your hand during, and then I'll also have a question and answer period at the end of my piece. So some basic facts about the budget. So the fiscal year, so FY, you'll see a lot of FY. The fiscal year starts on July 1st and runs through June 30th. So what we're deciding now is the FY 2014 budget. So it'll start this year on July 1st and end June 1st next year. The budget takes a very long time to put together. Basically, the minute that this budget is decided, which is on June 10th, is the final vote at City Council, they will actually start collecting the data and start thinking about next year's budget. So even though the really hard, difficult decisions and conversations happen right now, it's all year. So that means two things. One, advocate all year round for the thing you care about, or the things you care about. Always be talking to your council member, always be talking to city staff, always be talking, right? And then the other thing that means is that our current mayor, Mayor Filner, came in and was sworn in December, right? So this is actually, the basis for this budget was set up under the previous administration. And this is a Mayor Sanders budget with some strong Mayor Filner tastings or flavor to it. So what was the major thing about the budget this year? Well, the city has a $38.4 million shortfall. So before we even started talking about what we care about in our neighborhoods, we were in the hole $38.4 million. Yeah, so how did it come off back from that? Just some highlights. The total revenue, so the amount of money that the city is bringing in, our earnings, is about $2.64 billion for this proposed budget. We intend on spending, or we expect to spend, $2.75 billion. So yes, we are expecting to spend more than we earn. We've been doing it for years. It's called the structural budget deficit. When all of our earnings come from property taxes, sales taxes, and user fees, and the housing market crashes, it impacts our ability to take in earnings, right? Although it's been happening for a long time. It's not just the bubble crashing. We have about 4.39 in all of our reserve accounts across the city. So we have a good bank account, good healthy bank account for rainy days, for emergencies. And one of the big exciting things that everybody's really excited about is CIP, capital improvement, our built infrastructure, our sidewalks, our street lights, all the stuff, a lot of the stuff that you guys already mentioned. We're spending, this year the city expects to spend $1.72 million. Sounds like a lot. What's interesting about that, I know it's not a lot. What's interesting about that is about 43% of this $1.72 million is for our water and wastewater, so our water, sewer, storm drains. Yeah. Because it comes from a special fund that's walled off from the rest of the city, that's paid for through our water bills. And then another 19% of this figure is for transportation projects, mainly streets, bridges, anything that we kind of drive on. And that comes from Transnet, which is a sales tax. Years ago, we voted as a region that we would tax ourselves an extra $0.25 cent to pay for roads, and mostly roads, some transit, mostly roads, some bike lanes, but mostly roads. So when you're thinking about it, this is over 50% of this 1.72 million is stuff only for roads and stuff only for water and wastewater. It's not going for parks. It's not going for any of that because of the way the city gets its revenues. So let's look at what's in the budget this year. Very nicely, for the library, we have no change in hours. In the past, we've had fluctuating library hours, no change in hours. Every library is going to be getting new computers for the public to use. So when you go down and you use a computer at the library, it will be new with new software. It'll work for you, theoretically, right? Because computers are always a pain. Park and rec. So our rec centers and our parks, there will be no change in hours. So what you experience now is what you will be experiencing for the next year if this budget is adopted. We're also seeing some funding for new parks and open space and the maintenance of those. Now, for the gentleman in the back that spoke about homeless services, the mayor is proposing to take our winter emergency shelter for the homeless and no longer have it be just for the winter. He wants to transition it into a year-round services. That's going to cost about $1.3 million. He also has proposed that the city spend $200,000 in a joint partnership with San Diego Unified on a pilot program to provide free bus passes to low-income students at 4 area high schools: San Diego High, Lincoln, Crawford, and Hoover. This is a project that came out of Mid-City Can, which is a advocacy group in City Heights that has a lot of youth programming and really works with youth. And they realized, they were working with the youth, they found out that if you don't have a good way to get to school, you're not necessarily going to go to school. So this is an attempt to actually increase graduation rates and help with grades and really kind of an investment in the future. And if it goes well, hopefully everybody that's involved in this can lobby MTS to give reduced rates or more free bus passes to impacted youth. So, because I don't know if you know this, but San Diego schools, if you can technically walk to school, you do not get bused. But what if you're in a neighborhood where you don't feel safe walking to school? Well, then how do you get to school? Can you afford to take the bus? So $200,000 for that. Also, we're going to be investing in more personnel for public safety. We are going to be getting 16 new police officers and 3 new dispatchers in fire. And then we're going to be getting, if this is passed, new hourly seasonal positions equal to 12 full-time lifeguards for our beaches and I guess just our beaches. I don't know if that's pools. I don't think that's pools. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, I don't understand the 16 new police officers over 4 academies.
Oh.
Is that 16 per year? Is
Yes.
that 16 per fiscal year? 16?
It's 16 it's 16 for this fiscal year. So they have 4 academies every year to bring in new recruits. And so it'll be 4 additional recruit positions for each of the 4 academies. So 16 for this fiscal year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
And same thing with the lifeguards, 12 per year?
It's 12 it'll be hourly, so it'll be more than 12, but it'll add up to 12 full-time positions. And this is just for, the budget is always just for the fiscal year.
Right, thank you.
Yes.
Can I ask a question on the police officer? No. Where do they go for the academy?
I don't know where the academy is. It's here in San Diego, but I don't know exactly where.
So it's a public safety type of academy, it's not with the city of San Diego?
I think it's through the city of San Diego. I don't know. Okay. I'll flag that. I don't know that much about the police department, except that we're getting 16 new recruits. So we're also continuing on with community plan updates. We're going to be doing, it's proposed to fund community plan updates for Mission Valley, Otay, Mesa, Southeastern, which is where we are right now, Uptown, North Park, and Golden Hill. We've had a hard time actually funding, the city's had a hard time funding community plan updates, so the average age of our community plans is about 23 years old. I always say that our community plans would be graduating from college if they were a person. Now, the next one is a really interesting new program that the mayor is proposing, $950,000 for the Civic and Urban Initiatives. This is, there's not a whole lot of information on this, but it would be the equivalent of 6 new staff to coordinate and link fragmented urban and civic policies and produce new platforms of collaboration between local governments, institutions, and neighborhood organizations. That is a mouthful. Yes?
To clarify on that, you're just speaking about liaisons, somebody that's going to be a go-between between us, per se, and the mayor?
So there's not, as I said, there's not much information about this. The mayor, well, this will be heard Tuesday afternoon at City Council, so I assume that the mayor will be there to talk about it Tuesday afternoon from 2 to 5. In your packets, there are green sheets that have the departmental hearings. So all next week, the City Council from 9 to 5 will be hearing. They'll be talking about all of this and hearing about it so that they can make their decisions on each department in the city. So it'll be chunked out into 3-hour pieces. So you can look at that and see where you want to go. Okay, Xavier and then Felicia.
I thought the number for that was slightly higher. Did you take some out for a reason, or has it been adjusted?
I think it's been adjusted.
Okay. So how recent is that?
Out of this?
Okay.
So out of the budget itself. So, Felicia.
And when you talked about the discussion of the Civic and Urban Initiatives program, and you said it was in the afternoon.
It's under citywide program expenditures.
Okay. Okay.
And that's also where the bus passes will be served.
Okay.
One other thing.
Okay, hold on a second. Yeah.
Can you briefly tell me what exactly is a community plan update? What is that?
A community plan update. So, kind of all of the zoning and all of the kind of what you see in your neighborhood. So where the parks are, where the libraries are, those sorts of things are decided through the community planning process. And so it's very wonky land use kind of thing. We've got a couple folks that are on community planning groups. But what happens is the city has an entire plan about where streets are going to go, how wide they are, where the street lights are supposed to be, how many acres of park space per 1,000 residents. And the community plans are where that information is decided and where it lives. And so when, for example, the Jacobs Center, where we are right now, is a nonprofit developer, and they've got some land around. So when they want to build, do another development like this, or maybe some affordable housing or something, they will that development will be, the way it's developed will be dictated by the community plan. And so if the community plans are not up to date, you're dealing with something that is really out of date. I just said something very simple. One of the examples is, from what I understand, the Southeastern community plan is old enough that it doesn't actually speak to how the community relates to the trolley. So I could be wrong. This is anecdotal. So what we have here is a beautiful trolley system, but we don't necessarily have all of the planning to make sure that this community can use the trolley and benefit from it and actually even access it. There's sidewalks that don't take you to the trolley. There are trolley stops that don't have light at night. So if we update community plans, then hopefully these things will start getting taken care of. And community plans are supposed to be updated generally every 10 years. And since some of them, the average age is 23 years old, we are in dire need of updates.
Jorge.
Jorge, yes.
On the earlier slide about capital improvements, 1.7 million. There's no discussion there about federal funds like community development block grants.
No, the one point.
Because that then it creates an image of, for the size of our city, this seems like a pitiful amount, but there's significant amount of funding for capital improvement with CDBG.
Yes. So Jorge pointed out a good point. This is the capital improvement money that I'm talking about does not include things like some of the federal grants that we get, and also I'll talk about bonds later. But the city has got a very aggressive bonding program right now, and this does not include that money because the budget is basically a snapshot in time, and so when bonds are going to be, the city council will be deciding whether or not we'll do any bonding. So since this is a snapshot in time and we don't know the size of the bonds, we don't know whether the council will approve them, those aren't in here. So there are other ways to fund capital improvements. This is just what this snapshot looks like. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, when we're looking at the capital expenditures, the CIP's expenditure, it's for all of the neighborhoods. So it's all the city of San Diego, and it's actually a very small amount based upon the needs of the neighborhoods. I just want to
Yes, and what this lady just said, Michelle, what Michelle just said is that it looks like a large amount for capital improvements for what we need. It's very small, which I'll actually be covering a little bit later, because it is one of the hot topics that the media and the council will be discussing.
Yeah, it should be showing the size by footage, and then for each block, how much is spent.
I mean, you can also list it as a percentage. I mean, if I got that right, 1.7 million on whatever the billions were in the total, it's 0.06%.
Yeah, I agree.
0.0006, that's pretty small.
So, okay, so these are all good things to think about. So, and yes, we do actually need to spend more on capital improvements, which I'll get to hopefully in just a little bit. Hopefully I'll answer at least some of your questions about that. So let's look at what's different, or let's put this budget in context with past budgets. So remember how I said we've had a structural budget deficit for a long time? Here's our structural budget deficit. So this is FY 2009, which started July 1st of 2008. So before we even started talking about what we hear about in our communities, we had a shortfall of $22 million. In November of 2008, so in the middle of FY 09, the impact of the recession really started to hit, right? That's when we really realized what we were in for. So what happened in November 2008? The city went back and said, my gosh, we have no money. So they had to cut $31 million out of the budget on top of this $22 million that they'd already filled. That was when, if you remember, if you were here in San Diego, that was when we had fire departments that were browned out. So we did not have fire departments. They were on a rotating basis or rolling basis. There weren't fire personnel in your local fire station. That's when we really had the drastic cuts in our police and fire academies, which is why we're having to add personnel again. That's when libraries and rec centers were drastically cut. They were talking about closing entire libraries at that time. They didn't. They just slashed hours at every library. Our libraries used to have some Sunday hours and extensive Saturday hours, not any longer. So that was November of 08. And then the next budget cycle, 7 months later, the city council is deciding on a budget that had a shortfall of nearly 63 million. So FY9 and FY10, we had to cut. The city had to make some serious decisions about what we were going to fund as a city. Really hard. And then it just keeps going because we are not bringing in the revenues that we need to support our expenditures.
So this isn't unique to San Diego?
This is so not unique to San Diego. No, not at all. I mean, look at the sequester at the national level, right? This is what's happening at the state level. This is what is driving cities to bankruptcy, right? Across the nation and across Stockton, exactly. We are not the only ones. This woman and then Jorge.
Maybe you'll get to it later, but there was no mention of, and maybe somebody else funds this, but the city jail, we know it's overcrowded, there was no mention of that, and I just think we need to think about that as far as park and rec and other things, because we're spending a lot of money incarcerating people when we could probably save the city money by providing services that will keep them out of jail.
So the woman in the front pointed out that my presentation doesn't talk about the funding for the city jail. I didn't go that deep into this. I know it's got to be there, but I didn't go that deep. Mind you, the city budget is a nearly 800-page document. It has so many fun things that you can really dive into, or not.
How many pages?
It's about 800. Yeah, I saw it printed out on, So I would highly recommend using it online. So she was talking about the fact that maybe we should look at the idea of spending more in park and rec and youth services, and because we're spending so much on our local jails, that maybe it's a good idea to invest somewhere else. And then Jorge, and then
Corinne, the shortfalls that you have graphed there, are they carryover the next year?
These are based on, this is what the city needs to, this is what the mayor starts with. And so no, actually fiscal years are nice, and they start and end, and then anything that's there can carry over. So so if we don't solve this problem, then it shows up here, and then it shows up here, and it shows up here.
No, because then it gives you proportion that, for example, with the -28, presumably a lot was used to cover for the deficit of the year before. Is that
Some
right?
of it was. Actually, the cuts that happened here, it was more or less every year the mayor and the council try to deliver as close to a balanced budget as possible. So this is, for the most part, this is what we're really dealing with. And every year, it's not, we are kind of kicking the can down the road, so to speak, but we do the city does try to deliver a balanced budget.
Okay, my thing is, most of your jail people are drugs and alcohol. They should have more places for drug and alcohol rehab. But when they do go in, why can't they use them instead of sitting in jail thinking about more scheming and more crime? Clean the highways, clean the streets.
So there's definitely a lot of opinion on public safety and our incarceration and how we do things, and social services. Again, these are things to talk to your your council person about, and also any of your electeds. If you have, they're there to listen to you. So if you have an opinion, call them, write them, email them, go down to their office. Our sidewalks and our parks, which would be about 2.3 million, and our major water and wastewater assets, which is about 7.6 million. I'm standing in the way, aren't I? So what is a condition assessment, and why are people worried about that? So let's think about a car. A condition assessment on a car, it's figuring out what all of the shape of the various parts of the car. So how about your belts, your fans, your tires, etc. What shape are they in? When are you going to have to replace them? When are you going to have to repair them? And then when is it going to be time to just get a whole new car at all? So it's the same way with the city. Everything has a life cycle, and except that they're a lot more expensive and a lot bigger than a car. So we're looking at, for example, wastewater. So this sewer and water and wastewater, which means sewer, $7.6 million means that what we want to do and why it's so expensive, we want to send a little camera. The city wants to send a little camera down all of our pipes, all those miles of pipes, to figure out how old they are and what condition they're in, right? Because we still have some of our original cast iron pipes in the city from, the turn of the last century, and that's why we're seeing a lot of water main breaks. So the council is very concerned that we're not going to spend money on knowing the state of our infrastructure. And this is where I'm getting to, I believe, this table's concerns and Lorca's concerns. So what is the size of our deferred maintenance? We're looking at about 900 million, the city's looking at about 900 million in deferred maintenance, meaning what we should be repairing and what we should be investing in. And that's what we know about. We don't know about our parks. We don't know about the state of 2/3 of our facilities. We don't know much about our sidewalks. Actually, we don't know hardly anything about our sidewalks as a city. We just know that they're not great. And we don't know that much about our water and wastewater. So we need to, the council wants to spend money to find that out. So what's their plan? What's their plan for filling this? The plan that they passed last year was to basically go to the market and issue $100 million of bonds every year for 5 years from 2012 to 2017. And they did a supplemental $35 million bond this year. So what's a bond? Well, a bond is basically a loan. The city is using its credit card to fund our sidewalks and our parks and our other infrastructure, right? That's basically a bond. So what is the discussion that they're so concerned about? Well, they said, they were talking about, they're very concerned about the fact that the mayor is going to wait to issue the next bond. We're supposed to be doing a bond this summer, but he wants to push it off for about 6 months. So what's the concern?
Why does he want to push it off?
That's what I'm gonna. So he's got reasons for pushing it off. The first one is of the bond that was sold in 2012, so just last year. The city has only kind of spoken for 37% of it, either planned on spending it or are already spending it. So we still have 60, I can do math in my head, 63% of 75 million that's still unencumbered, so we still haven't spent. The debt service on bonds is pretty amazing, like a credit card. It costs money to get money. So by waiting 6 to 9 months to do this bond, it's going to save $6 million for this fiscal year. So you can imagine if it's $6 million by waiting 6 months on a $100 million bond. Yes, sir.
How is it going to save money for 6 to 9 months? I mean, the money could have been accruing equity in the bank for 6 to 9 months.
That's not the way bonds work.
Okay, so how is it saving money for 6 to 9 months?
This saves money in the same way that if you can wait 6 to 9 months to go buy a new car, you're not paying those payments on your car. So
Are we buying vehicles? Is that what you're speaking about? Are you talking
No,
about vehicles
no.
for the service employees, like, the
No,
police, the
we're
fire,
actually,
rescue?
so what we do, what a bond is we say, the city says, investors, we will promise to pay you out of our general fund in the future if you give us money now for us to build a new park.
I understand
A new library, right.
Okay.
So,
But how does it save the money? I
because
still don't-
we're not taking on the debt, so we don't have to pay.
We're not paying on the loan.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
You're delaying the ball.
Right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, yes, so, Michelle wants me to explain who pays for bonds.
Well, the general obligation bonds.
They're lease revenue bonds. It's all really, I know so much more about things that I never thought when I was growing up that I'd ever do. So what a lease revenue bond is we are actually pledging future revenues of the city to pay for the bonds. So we will pay for what we take out in the loan, and then we will pay on top of that. So it's our tax money paying for this.
When you say we, you mean?
We, the
I'm talking about we. I'm talking about
all homeowners, and it's on your property
That's what I'm
taxes.
saying.
Yeah,
You
this is
check your property taxes every year.
Actually-
You may have 10 to 12 to 15 bonds you're paying for yearly.
this one's actually a little bit different.
I just.
But yeah, this is taxpayer money. This is stuff that we pay in every year through sales taxes and through property taxes. And yes, so, and then this issue about conditions assessments. Councilmember Alvarez brought up a really good point last week when they were talking about capital improvements. Conditions assessments. It's not clear that if the city does these conditions assessments, that it will actually capture what is necessary to actually be put in. The assumption is that a condition assessment goes out and looks at the things we have currently and says, are they good? Are they bad? Do they need to be replaced? But what about the stuff that we need as citizens in our neighborhoods that we don't have, like the bike infrastructure that the woman in the back talked about, or the missing sidewalks that we want, right? So Councilmember Alvarez said he's concerned that if we go forward with these conditions assessments, that we will not then have the list of the stuff that we need and we want, and we will only be dealing with the list of things that are broken and need to be fixed. So really, he brought up an excellent point. One of our leaders in SGOP often carries this message to the council members as well, is don't just tell me what needs to be fixed. Tell me and fund what needs to be put in that doesn't exist. And then this next piece of information just blew my mind when I was reading it. So the city expects to sell about $800 million of bonds from this 2012 to 2017 time period. Over the next 5 years, the accumulated debt service for that money, for that $800 million, is $62 million. So that bar chart that I showed of all of our deficits and where we start, that goes into that money, right? Because we need to be able to pay for our debt. We need to make those payments. Yeah, it's coming out of our pockets one way or the other. So there's a lot to be talked about CIP, right? It's very difficult, it's very expensive, but it's the things that we really, really need in our communities. Yes, ma'am.
Since we spent some time on that condition assessment,
Uh-huh.
because we need to start somewhere, and I understand that working with what's broken or needs to be fixed is like starting somewhere, as opposed to saying, let's do it all, because being that it is just what we're predicting for the year, if not for the next 5 years or the next 10 years, is in that year.
So, what this woman did different? I'm sorry.
Lon.
What Lon just brought up is, yes, the conditions assessments are a good place to start. And we do have some, and we can start there. And then the other piece is gathering the list of what we need. So it's a multi-layered process, and that's where all of you guys can get involved and say, Councilmember Alvarez or Councilmember Leitner or Councilmember Emerald, what I need in my neighborhood is this, right? I was going to say the council member for this district, but we won't know that until the 21st. So what are some of the other big things that you might hear about? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that my council member just sent out a letter asking constituents, I'm in District 7, what we see is what do we need? You know, he's asking for input from the public for what do we need to fix or what do we need to do.
Yeah. So she was saying that her council member just sent out a letter saying to communicate with him about what needs fixed and what they need to see. Also, starting in July, your local community planning group will also be collecting that information. So planning groups are on the city website, or we also have some people in the room that are on their community planning groups. Community planning groups are a good place to start to talk about what you need in your community, and also always contact your council member. That's one of the big things that they do in their office. And then, yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to know, will you provide for us, or do you have a list of the local planning groups in what neighborhoods and how they get in touch with them if any of us want to know?
So for community planning groups, there are 42 community planning groups throughout the city. So, and those are online at the city website. They have a contact list, and if you have a problem navigating the city website, you can either contact us or just they have a main line, and I'm sure they will be very helpful about getting that to you. And I'm gonna keep going. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
And just when you're advocating for something for your neighborhood or your community, you stated that they should be ones, aren't they one of the first ones that you should contact to help you advocate for something in the neighborhood of yours?
The community planning group?
With them to go to your city council?
Eva was talking about if you want something in your neighborhood, you start at your community planning group and then go to your council member. I would say do both, because quite honestly, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So I highly recommend that everybody get involved in their community planning group. There's a lot of, it's a little wonky, it's a little dry, but that's where what your built environment in your neighborhood, that's where it starts, and that's they get listened to, usually. Usually, not always. Depends on what you're asking for. So what are some of the other things that might be heard? Those were the two big discussions that I've heard down at City Hall and in the media. So what are some of the others? Right now, there is an option for a 5-year contract with city employees, with our city workers, our trash truck drivers, the folks who clean out our storm drains, etc. A 5-year contract, the savings could be as much as $25 million this fiscal year, and up to 140 over the 5 years of the contract. It depends on what's in the contract, but it would be, they're talking about it being a big savings. So that's going to be, I'm pretty sure that's going to be a big discussion during this budget cycle. So next week I think we'll hear about this a lot. It'll probably be in the media. And as I said, I know that there's been a lot of talk in the media about the city workers getting a lot of money. Well, like any big organization, it depends on who you're looking at. People at the top make a lot of money maybe. People who are picking up your trash or taking care of your kids as a rec leader at the rec center, not so much. So just, this is more of one of those, like, this is the context for what you might be hearing about, and definitely make up your own mind. But also manage competition. This is something that some of the council members really enjoy. So managed competition is a form of privatization of city services, and we've done a few of them at the city. Now, Center on Policy Initiatives, my organization, has spent a lot of time looking at managed competition and its impact on the city budget, on city services, and so far there's no data on the impact on city services yet that's firm, but what we've seen in the planning process is that the city doesn't necessarily know what they're doing all the time when they're doing them. And we've done a lot of suggestions about, as you're creating this document to privatize or to contract this out, these are the things that you have forgotten that are happening right now that citizens count on. So when you hear this, we can save so much money through, say, managed competition, take that with a grain of salt. It hasn't always worked in other cities. It is a tool. And like many big problems, solving the city budget is going to take a lot of different options and a lot of hard work. And so this is a tool. Both of these things are tools, and the city council will be talking about them a lot, I'm sure. And so what do I think about? Where do I start when I try to take a bite out of a big 700-page document? Well, and there's so much going on. Well, what I like to think about as I'm going through it is, okay, well, who's paying for it, right? Where's the money coming from? Where's the money going? Who's benefiting from this? Who gets to decide? Where are all the decision points, and who gets to make the decisions? So community planning groups are one of the places where the decision-making process starts. And then the question of, well, but who's being left out? Who's not getting the benefits? Who's not being thought of? Who is not involved in the decision-making process? And I always look at fairness, the question of fairness, which fairness is not equality. As we know, equal means the same for everyone, and as we move through our neighborhoods, you can tell that not everybody has the same amount. So I think of fairness as not everybody getting the same, but everybody getting what they need. So that's how I start looking at the budget, is I ask those questions. So here's the big, next week, the city council will be holding hearings all day, every day, broken out on that green sheet. So if there are things that you care about, I would highly recommend going down and talking to your council members. If you can't go, send emails, call them, somehow communicate your opinion to them. Then as I said, your green sheets is the detailed schedule. And Susan will be explaining how to kind of navigate speaking at city council and how to be excellent at it. And May 22nd, big one, if you cannot make it to any of the hearings next week, there will be an evening hearing downtown. And actually, Salamisha's got she's going to be doing a field trip. She's got the, what would you call it?
The Power of Speaking Out trolley ride for the budget hearing, the evening budget hearing on May 22nd. We're going to meet over here at right here at the trolley station about 4 o'clock. Not 4 o'clock, between 4:30 and 5. Take the trolley down to City Hall so that way we don't have to worry about parking, and just show how interested people are in attending this evening budget. Keep in mind that there's some people downtown that are wondering, why do we even need to have an evening budget for working people? They don't usually show up, and so we need to make sure they understand that, yes, we're serious about having our voice heard, and we're going to take advantage of that evening budget hearing.
So what Salamisha just said is she is organizing a trolley ride downtown for this evening hearing. We're going to meet here between 4:30 and 5 and go down and speak. And it's very important that some of the city council members don't know that, aren't sure that it's worth their time and the money, a small amount of money, to have evening hearings. So it's very important to come out. This evening hearing will be kind of free form. It'll be about the entire budget. It will not just be about certain parts of the budget. So if you can't make it out, or better yet, if you are so adamant about what you care about, come twice. And then on June 10th will be the final vote. There won't be really any chance for change, but there will be a final vote. And so right now what's happening is the city is making the decisions about what we're going to see in our neighborhoods for the next year. So this is the time to get in and to talk to your council members, talk to the mayor, to tell everybody what you care about and why you care about it and why they should fund it, and just get out there and fight for it. So my section is done. You can learn more. The budget document, the budget itself, the 700-page document, is on the city website. So if there's something that you really want to look for, you can go there. You can read the independent budget analyst's report. This was my homework over last weekend. This is what I read last weekend. It's also it's a very good analysis. We at CPI have a lot of budget resources on our website. We have a couple of webinars and PowerPoints on Budget 101, on CIP, on how to read a budget, and some other things, more information on the Community Budget Alliance. Or if you contact me, I will do my very best to email you back. It's clearly, since it's budget season, I am very busy. I'm going to be down at City Hall next week, but at least I can steer you to who you should try to talk to at the city. So are there any last questions? We took care of them all during my presentation. Excellent.
We have 10 minutes for questions.
Yeah. We do have 10 minutes, or we can go to a break early.
Corinne, well, thank you. This is a great presentation.
Thank you.
My question is, you started off explaining that budgets are decided a year ahead of time, even earlier. Yeah, and you also showed a graphic representation of the structural deficit that we carry over every year. Is CPI interested to, or maybe already doing, a discussion about how do we start thinking about generating new sources of revenue for you to get out of this discussion? Because the discussion typically boils down to cutting services or increasing taxes. Is that pretty much the parameters where we can work, or are there other ways of addressing this issue without selling your parks and the one-time thing?
So what Jorge was just asking was if CPI is looking at revenue streams for the city, because in these times of not having enough money, it's really do we cut services or raise taxes or et cetera, or how do we raise revenues without selling our assets, like selling our parks? We have chipped away at those questions around, say, business license fees. City of San Diego takes in so much less money than other cities in the state on business licenses. We could be, clearly business licenses are not the place that we can fill the entire multi-million-dollar shortfall. There are little places where we can do tweaks, but I think really looking at kind of where some of our ballot box decisions have happened. If you look at the California Budget Project, is an excellent resource. It's a little wonky, but if you ever need to know anything about the state budget and its impacts, they are brilliant at explaining it. It's really, we have, as a populace, as voters, we have voted over and over again to limit the ability for local governments to raise revenue. Anytime we want to raise revenue, we have to go to the ballot box and get two-thirds of the voters to say, yes, indeed, I would like to raise my taxes. I would like to pay for something more. It's a little different with school districts. Again, we as a populace went to the ballot box and said, except for schools, we like schools enough that we will allow them to approve bonds at a much lower level at 55%. But it's really hard to have that discussion about how do we deal with this, because nobody wants to pay more, but everybody wants some. Everybody wants the stuff that we have. So are we working on it? It's a big question. I think we have some ideas, but in terms of tackling the full thing, Michelle,
Okay.
and then there's a big jacket over there. Michelle first.
I just want to talk on the fact that different neighborhoods approach it differently. I live downtown, 9101 zip code. We, the homeowners downtown, pay extra fees on our taxes under the PBID for safety and cleanliness. We also pay for the electricity on the mid-city blocks. So when you say you don't have lights, we actually pay extra money to get the lights, and we actually pay for the electricity. We pay for the sidewalks to be clean. We pay for the trash cans to be emptied. But we have voted for that in downtown. If we didn't have that, it would be a trash area. It would be trashy. Downtown would be trashy. So it's not clean because the city does it. The city doesn't do anything downtown. We, the homeowners, pay for third-party vendors to do it.
Michelle did point out that certain areas have voted to, it's called a maintenance assessment district. You can carve out a certain geographical area and then vote within that area to actually pay for things. So, in North Park, for example, where all of a University and 30th, they have happened in place, they have a maintenance assessment district. El Cajon Boulevard has a maintenance assessment district to pay for things that the city doesn't have the money to pay for, and people, especially business owners, want to see happen. And then downtown as well. So that is one way. But for neighborhoods that don't have that kind of money, these are all, the way that I always talk about budget is that it's a very dynamic, very complex thing, that there's not just a cookie cutter approach. There needs to be a real thoughtful, how does it work for this neighborhood? What are the options? And then at some point we're going to have the really hard discussion about what do we want as a city as the baseline? Because if we're talking about murals out picking up trash on weekends and evenings and landscaping and things like that, because there isn't the ability to pay for that within her community, but Michelle is paying more, is this really the way that we as a populace want to go about our budgeting? So these are the questions that we really have to, it's big, philosophical, difficult questions to have, right? But this is about who we are as people and our quality of life. And I have a microphone, so I can pontificate. We'll start with the woman in the yellow, and then we'll go to Joe, and Joe? No, I'm sorry, the gentleman here, and then so.
Well, I'm probably out of bounds by suggesting this, but or asking about it. The reason why all this seems to happen, and that we can't raise our taxes overall so easily, is that it started back when we decided to use Proposition 13 as the basis for taxation. And that formula for San Diego was built for San Diego when it was a very small city. And we didn't have the resources and we didn't have the population that we have now. So that is what really needs to be looked at. But it's not appropriate for this venue, but is there somebody doing that? Is there somebody that says, let's look at the formulas for distribution of property income from the state?
So the question and the discussion was that this really kind of started with Proposition 13 and the fact that Proposition 13 happened and the formula for the money that San Diego gets from property taxes was locked in 1978 when Prop 13 was passed, when San Diego was a very different place. And yet that's state law and can't be changed. So she was asking if there's anybody that's kind of looking at that. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. I know there are people that are working on Proposition 13. I think if you Google, there are many people that are working on it or thinking about it in various different ways. But I don't have anything off the top of my head. And thank you. And then this gentleman is
Speak to that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Proposition 13.
Can you say that?
Yeah, I believe in the Bay Area and a couple of other regions around the state, they've put in measures on the ballot to essentially supplement what Prop 13 took away. And the measure in the East Bay Area failed by, I think, 600 votes last year. And it's usually tied into some sort of very similar to a transit fund. So it comes in through like the transportation stream. And so that's one way some regions have been trying to kind of supplement what you cannot do with the population.
But it still has failed.
In San Diego, I think San Diego has the highest rate of failure for pushing any kind of.
You're still alive.
So what they were discussing is that in other areas, they go to the ballot box and supplement. So, you know, actually ask the voters, would you pay more for X, Y, and Z? Would you pay more in sales tax? Those sorts of things. San Diego has a very, very strong history of saying, no, we don't want to pay more. So, you know, Los Angeles, we choose often to not pay more. So, thank you for that. And then, sir?
One more question.
Oh, one more?
Yeah.
My name is Frank from the Leon Saigon Foundation. We do community revitalization and economic improvement, business improvement. I just noticed that a lot of our discussion kind of center around a demand for transparency and responsibility of the city to balance the budget to generate income. And that's completely legitimate because, you know, we vote for them and that's their responsibility. But at the same time, I was wondering if we, as different community organization has kind of come together and create our own solution to contribute to that generation of more funding, as opposed to just demanding the city, because we know they're kind of stretched tight in their different you know, priorities. You know, for example, you know, we do business improvement by doing special events, you know, improve businesses. So I was wondering if it's possible for us as individual organization to actually come together and create, to be the people who actually make money for the city, in addition to making this city, you know, be more responsible.
I don't understand this question.
The question is, what can we do to generate money for the city? In addition to paying tax, right? In addition to paying tax and all that stuff. And paying higher fees for park users.
So we're going to have to wrap up. His question was what can we do from outside of the city to create money for the city? I think the only thing that I could say is that with the size of the continuing deficits, that there's not a whole lot that people that do not have powers of taxation could actually do to raise, say, $62 or $38 million every year, and then some. So really, you know, there's lots of things that can be done, and that add up to the 38 million or the 62 million or et cetera. But it's an interesting idea. I'm not sure where to take that.
I'm not asking for a solution right now.
But so the point being that next week is really a big week, and it kicks off this budget year. But then, as you're thinking about what you care about this budget year, don't stop there. Come back, talk to your council member, talk to the mayor, talk to everybody about, well, I didn't get it. Maybe I didn't get what I needed this year, but next year's a whole new year. And so let's just keep working. And so now we have a break, is that right? Oh. Trin's going to make some announcements. But thank you all for being here and listening to me and for a really great discussion. Let's give ourselves all a hand.
Thank you, Corinne. Hi, my name is Trin. I'm the organized CPI, in case y'all don't know me. So one more time, a round of applause for Corinne for doing an amazing job. And really breaking down the information in a way that we all can understand, right? And so information is power, and now that we're feeling that power, what do we do with it, right? So Susan's going to talk about what do we do now? Like, how do we speak so that city councilors will listen to us, right? And how do we convey our message in a way that people will understand? And so we're going to take a quick 5-minute break for coffee, snacks, bathroom, whatever you need, and then reconvene here at 11. And feel free, bathroom is just out this way. And feel free to talk to your neighbors, folks in the room. Maybe you hear some of the questions they have. Maybe they have some similar issues that you want to talk about. And really take this time to have those kind of conversations. Right, thank you.